it as a souvenir.
Rip it up. Yeah.
Yeah, basically. So yeah, and I can tell you that in the afternoon of Tuesday, Hagen Ranch Library was walk right in and vote. It was there wasn't anything representing a line.
Well, that's good, and that's good and bad news. Okay, hey Charlie, I think we can start. Dr. Marc Lafalaise, most of you know, he's the president of the United Haitian American Club at Palm Beach County. And what we want to do is kind of strategize over how we can turn out the vote. And I mean, I think we all know that it is, the communities of color are not, they're the loyalist supporters of the Democratic Party, but they're also the most disappointed ones. And I think we need to be talking about what we can do to help them and to have them turn out in greater numbers. So, Dr. Lafalaise, if you want to start off.
Thousands of phone calls that we're making, the postcards, knocking on doors. I know it's hard. I do not have a primary election. I'm so grateful for that. And I'm hoping aside to make sure those that do are in the spotlight. Whether they're
supposed to be listening to this.
Where's that?
That was from
Just
Tom
talking.
Jennings.
Hey, Tom was lit up, but that sure didn't sound like Tom.
Sounds like Dawn.
but I do know that I'm running against.
Okay, well, we'll mute that one anyway. Go on.
Yeah.
Okay,
There it is.
Mark.
Yes, sir. Good evening.
Hey,
It's a pleasure to be on tonight and to strategize for us to understand the Haitian people in a little bit. And I hope that after this evening we can more or less understanding with the culture that and also what's motivate them to vote. That's the whole thing that I would like to really cover tonight. And it's a pleasure to have you be on, and I hope we can have a good time tonight. And then what I find is this: since the election of President Joe Biden, and then we have had these immigration issues, at the border, and it appears that the Haitian people as a group expected to be more or less.
Leave it. That's how you get rid of it. Leave it.
I'm trying to make sure that people know I'm genuine at my heart. And I don't.
Tom, we got to mute you there.
Oh.
Yes, sir. Can it go on now?
Yeah, I think you can continue, Mark. I think
Okay. And that seems whether it's in Miami or Broward County and Palm Beach County, that seems to be what it is that the main issue, and they felt like their issues are not really being addressed, and and some of them even stated that given the situation, where President
Okay, we're back.
Okay.
What happened, David?
You were the only one gone.
Yeah, we were here.
What? I was the only one that got lost?
Yeah.
Huh.
Welcome back.
All right. No. Go ahead.
God, I love technology.
Yes. But the main issue is that the medium that the Haitian people listen to mostly is really radio. The radio is play a very, very big role within the Haitian community. because you are dealing with people. Whereas in Haiti also, it's always like the medium is radio, not not TV per se, but now it's the social media, meaning they receive their messages through WhatsApp and Messenger and TikTok, and I felt like this is the medium that now, if we want to advertise or trying to motivate them with certain issues, is to get some of those excerpts, and those kind of and send messages to them, using, for example, Delray Beach Democratic Club, and Mr. Comtrell or Mr. Kulik, or whoever it may be, Mrs. Austin, and Arlene, so it's like we have to find a way to be more present within the Asian community, because the way they feel, the feeling is that, whether it's Mr. McBernard or Christopher Willis and Sheila McCormick, and they have that feeling they need to see their candidate, they need to see people, and some of them are clearly complaining that whenever there's going to be a vote, people can show up, and after that they all disappear, and their issues are not being addressed. So me, what I have done myself is that I have used the radio a lot, education, teaching them, informing them as to what it is. For example, I went over the ballot with them. I've been going over the ballot lately, because different from different districts. For example, you not find some of them are saying, "Oh, I don't see Louis Freckle on as on this." I said, "Well, she's not in your district. Even though she may come to speak on the radio or she may have an interview, it doesn't really mean that it's for all Haitian living in Palm Beach County, because you have to belong to a certain district to be able to vote for the person. So now it's education. So what I have personally is some of my friend, Mr. Augustine, that I introduced you one time. I came to the club with him, and then he is education. We talk about subject. We talk about the policy, for example, and I explain. We've been explaining to them, not because you read something, for example, in the Miami Herald, or you hear it through Fox, even CNN, doesn't necessarily mean it's true. You have to investigate. You have to find out. You have to be able to discriminate what you are listening to, and also to pass judgment. And so then I explained to them. I said, because, for example, because Mr. Trump said he never was subpoenaed, it doesn't mean it's true. That's what he says, but doesn't mean it's true, because what I have heard is that, he was the president, and the FBI have no business of investigating him because that's the first time that happened. So we need to explain that. Now, what I do find out also, for example, Val Demings is all over TV. Yet when you go knock on doors, or you talk to some of them, when you said Val Demings, so whether it's African American, Haitian, and they have not heard of her. I was surprised myself. So what I'm saying to the candidate, or to Democratic Party, is to be able to advertise on the Haitian radio station, because they listen to that. They listen to the radio a lot, and I think that could be a medium that we could use to motivate them. Canvassing is also good. Knock on doors is good, but given the COVID situation, so most of us kind of drift away from that. But while we were drifting away from that, and I found the Republicans are not drifting away. They're very aggressively pursuing this group as a voting group. So I think we have now the way it is, because of religious belief and other ethical issues that they are very strong about. That is something that we need to address when we talk to to particularly the Haitian people as a group, to understand how to approach them, whether we're talking about human rights, women rights, instead of saying abortion, don't use the word abortion,
Yeah.
but use the word women rights, that they would understand you have the rights to be able to have over your body, to make decision, that they will go for. But if you're saying abortion, but immediately religion get into it.
Yeah.
So that are fine.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Mr. Avrak, how is it?
You know, we found when we were canvassing, Shar and David and I go over into the Chatelaine and Delray Shores, and you know, the conservative nature of many of the Haitian people, you know, and I you know, it probably comes through the churches. Yeah, I had a guy lecturing me about he didn't want his kid going to school with little boys that wanted to be girls, little boys that wanted to wear dresses, you know.
Yes.
And you know, it is. I mean, the abortion thing is definitely you know, something that we have to be very careful about. But we had it, you know, it's the same thing that happened in 2020, where the Republicans in Florida were out canvassing while we were being good and cautious and respectful. And we need to get out there again. Bob, you had your hand up, sorry.
Yeah, thanks, Mike. Mark, good to see you, my Brooklyn buddy.
Yeah.
It's a pleasure.
Absolutely. Hey, from a practical perspective, all right, we've always operated on the assumption that in order to, you know, reach the Haitian voters, that everything we present has to, you know, be in both English and Creole. From a practical perspective, do you see that as vital for outreach, or in fact, are there, you know, enough English-speaking and bilingual, you know, Haitian voters that it's a nice to have, but it's not an absolute necessity? What is your take on that?
Yeah, my take is different. Is different from where you are doing it. What you know, for example, what part of Delaware, for example? Okay, if you are East Delaware, from going toward southeast, thank you, southeast, or part of northeast, by the Pompeo,
Pompey Park.
Pompey Park. Thank you very much. And in the area, you tend to find people who are, you know, since I'm among friends, I can use that word, with low socioeconomics and the education level would be a little bit less than what you will find in West Delaware going to a jog. And because we do have Haitian in there, but you couldn't be able to tell that they are Haitian because they speak the language very well.
Sure.
Some of them moved from the north part, you know, of New York, Connecticut, Pennsylvania, and Boston, Massachusetts, the area. They moved to Florida, and then the enclave down there, you know, you wouldn't need. I would say you would need no bilingual people, except that, you know, you go and canvass and you'll find them. They may, you know, and that would be it. But in Lake Worth, you know, where I am, in Lake Worth, East Lake Worth, from I-95 going toward Federal Highway. There, I think definitely, beyond the shadow of a doubt, you will need a bilingual person, because there they need someone to you know, to kind of translate, you know, to be able to speak both languages, to facilitate, you know, this way you can have a conversation. You know, when they say something, you can kind of counteract without being hostile, you know, that kind of thing.
Of course.
Yeah. And I see that also in you will find them also part of West Palm Beach, you know, West Palm and Lake Park, Riviera Beach. In Lake Park, there's a big Haitian community there. Now I went there and I have a young person there by the name of Eugene, and then Igilese Eugene. And then, as a matter of fact, he went to yesterday. He took we use a van to take people to vote, early voting.
Mhm.
Early voting, and then immediately he give me a call saying they said from 7 to 7. When he got there, it was about 8, and the place was still closed. And then what can we do about that? Because these people need to go to work. But I said to him, okay, that that we have to find with the Bureau of Election, or particularly with Bear Beach. It's not a question. It's not the Democratic Party. This is something that we are responsible for. However, let me call and talk to Mr. Bernard about it. Maybe he can make a phone call for that. That won't happen next time. So I kind of put myself out there saying, I guarantee you it won't happen again. That kind of thing.
Excuse me.
assume the leadership.
So Mark, if as a follow-up, then if I can, if we, and that all makes a lot of sense, and certainly from printed, the printed medium, having both English and Creole, especially with us being in East LA and having generally lower socioeconomic population we're going after, that makes a lot of sense. Yes. What about radio? If we were to try to use radio as a medium for our messaging, how should we approach that? Should we, should we count on the host to do the translation? Yeah. Should we?
No,
I watched one of Mark's shows the other night, and that's exactly what he did. Where there was an English-speaking person, and he would do little bits of translating. And I think the other Haitian radio hosts probably do the same thing, right, Mark?
Yes, sir. Yeah, that seems to be the approach. Except sometimes when you are speaking with an English speaker or a politician, he tend to go through so many points. So the only thing you do is kind of summarize it. So for the people. But when you ask questions, the question that I ask, I tend to translate it for them to understand what is it that I'm asking. For example, if I said, Mr. Kemtrell, are you familiar with the Haitian community? And do you understand what is it that you think that the Haitian community need? Something like that. And then I would say that in Creole, blah, 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 blah. But when you answer, if you're gonna give me an excessive diatribe and thing like that, so I would tend to.
Well, I never do diatribes.
Well, but that seems to be the thing. But Haitian people also, the owner of the radio station, 1340 AM, he says, "Wow, I don't understand that. These people love to talk. They talk, but they don't love to make money." I said, "You are wrong about the money. They love the money, but they are very politically inclined. They like to hear news, what's happening here, but like controversial kind of stuff. Like a debate, But if you, for example, if you really want to do something, you felt you have someone that you want to interview on the radio, I could always make arrangement, to put you on at a time where I know a lot of them are listening, and we have a program, 1340 AM, 96.1 FM, and 97.5. That's that all the whole county. I mean, the whole county, cover the whole county, and from 1 to 3. And that seems to be a very popular program. So whenever we have someone of caliber, let's just say right now, Charlie Chris is coming, he wants an interview. The other day, I interviewed Nikki Fried. For the radio of, in Orlando, Radio Tropical in Orlando. And Nikki Fried did a very good job. She went through what she represents and things like that. She tried to kind of shape, her belief and of course what she's saying about Charlie Chris himself. But we translate, but of course we tell the people, you make the choice. There are two. Charlie Chris is a Democrat and she's a Democrat. We are not really endorsing any one of them. Particularly if I'm the one translating, I said I'm a president of the club. I cannot endorse anyone. But I told them after the 23rd, then I'll be able to stand behind a person, and I will come to the community and say, this is the person I endorse, and then blah blah blah. So that's.
I'd like to say
Joan-
something, please.
Jones had a hand up for a while.
Yeah, I was just gonna call on Joan.
Oh, thanks. You're next, darling. Hi, Mark. It's Joan.
Hey, hi, John. How you doing?
Good,
Nice to see you.
you.
Yeah.
We have a group scheduled to go to the Haitian Baptist Church in Lake Worth to do voter
Yes.
registration. So
Mhm.
we can arrange that on the 28th of August.
Okay.
Suggest, and anybody else is willing to join, they're expecting a large crowd there,
Mhm.
that we lead in with our first speaker as far as what we say to them and how do we present ourselves.
Right. Yeah, I remember one time, you know what, during the census, I did a few things like, you know, we went there to the Haitian Baptist Church, the one on between Boynton and Hypoloxo, and we did a few things there where, you know, I introduced a person like yourself, stating why you are there, why it is important that for you to be, you know, and this is a way to help to educate, to facilitate for them to be able to vote. Because what did happen, you know, particularly the one that graduating high school, some of the kids, and then that applied to become citizen, but that was just like weeks away from being a citizen, and then some people will go and then have them sign. They have not really went to they haven't passed the test yet, you know, but they were just weeks away, and then suddenly their name come down that they violate voting rights, and those kids, poor kids, it's because they were following instruction from some person that said sign here. So that's why now I'm trying to educate the kids in high school particularly. So do not assume that because you're going to be a citizen or and then you go and sign the voting registration. No, I said you don't sign anything until after you become a citizen, or after they say, okay, you come in and swear and say, but you know, so that kind of thing. But most Asian people, where you tend to find them is the church, and also in front of the supermarket. There's a supermarket here in Delaware. It's called Leogan, which is the city of Haiti, you know, called Leogan Market. And then a lot of Haitian go there. And also the Presidente Market. Presidente, it's a lot of Haitian that they frequent that place. So if that seems to be a place that, you know, you can find a lot of them there. But,
We tried Presidente and they don't really want us there, but what's the name of it? Could you spell the name of the other supermarket for me?
or L as in Lima, E Echo, O G as in God, A as Alpha, N Nana, E Echo. So Leogan.
And where is that located?
That's right there, that way by 8 up after I-95, 2 lights, and you can miss it on your left.
Okay, all right, so that would be a good place for us to
And also,
station.
I will, if you're interested in that,
Yeah,
let me know. I will inform the owner,
Oh.
and then if I talk to them, you'll be okay.
Because we have 2 people that try to go to El Presidente, they wouldn't let them, so this would be a good alternative.
Okay,
Thank
great.
you.
Arlene?
Also beware to some of the churches, the pastors will not be Democrats. Gotta be careful.
We'll be careful what we say.
Yes, ma'am, definitely.
Thank you very much, Mark.
Okay, no problem.
I had to,
And I'm sorry, Arlene.
ahead, Mark.
Another thing before I forget, you know, it's like what I do find also, we've been doing, and I think Mr. Kentrell, I've spoken to him about that. We've been doing like food giveaway, you know, like distribute food from Gateway to Housing, which is an organization I'm a board member. What we have done is giving food. We don't ask for money or anything like that. And we have, you know, like we have people tested for COVID, tested for, you know, all kind of different diseases and stuff. So that's like a service render, you know. So, and then they of course, we're giving food out because, you know, the situation now with inflation, people come out no matter who they are. The other day we did a food give out on Southeast 2nd Avenue and Swinton, and I could not believe it. At that particular one, they were Haitian, African American, Hispanic, and also Caucasian. You know, so that come out for the food. but at the same time, they took the opportunity to get tested and do other things. So that's what will bring that. I think having this little event and where we you know, we're not really buying vote now. That's not what I'm saying. But this type of event kind of bring people and they feel like you care
Right.
about them. So that's my point.
Excellent. Thank you, Mark. Let's talk about it. It's a great need for it.
Yeah. Mark, just a quick follow-up on that, and then Arlene. Well, is that with Maura Plant, that food giveaway?
Right. You know.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, because I remember one time I called you and then we were looking for a spot for a place to be able to do this, and then and you give us some suggestion, and we have a synagogue that was willing to take us in. However, because they were too far west, and the people that really using the term low socioeconomic, low SES, they tend to be in the east. I mean, in east side.
Right.
So that's where we look.
Okay. Arlene, finally.
Finally. And I apologize. I had to step away for an important phone call. So I don't want to be redundant, but what I wanted to say is the churches, and I know Joan has gone with me to some of them pre-pandemic, but arranged ahead of time for voter registration or updating records or VBMs, that sort of thing. Radio stations, Christina Romulus had ANSI and myself on for, when we had the Haitian American Culture Collaborative.
Right.
Other thoughts, but Joan made a good point. It depends on what the pastor is. Do you know Enoch Medurs? He's a
yes, I know him. He's a friend of mine.
Yes. Once he arranged to have 74 people on a telephone call with about 16 different churches, and he was translating for me as I spoke to the congregations about voting. So that's what comes to my mind, to go in person, and of course if you go with someone who's Haitian Creole speaking, that's the best way.
Right.
I had that experience even at Presidente Market in Del Rey. There's a barbershops. Barbershop's a great place. And when I went in, it was cold. When I went with Sandy Hector, I don't know if you remember her. Oh boy, we were everyone lit up, and we really got the word out. So I just wanted to share that, but definitely the churches. But then when I came back, you were speaking about Asians, not Haitians. So or else I'm not hearing right. Okay, that's the piece I just wanted to share.
Asians tend to be very receptive and welcoming group, particularly when you have other people, because just Haitian, that doesn't mean because you're Haitian, they're going to accept you. But when you have people of multi-ethnic, and mixed group who's diverse, then they tend to welcome that a lot, because it's not really coming from one person. It's not like I'm being paid to say those things.
The other thing I want to say is we had so many members of the Haitian American Culture Collaborative. I'm sorry, my brain is a little tired right now. I get up too early. But they are leaders in the Haitian communities, and like Nancy Louise and Henry Policier and Enoch, we would meet. Linda Charles, and they should. It would be wonderful to have them involved in pulling out the communities. It is very difficult, but that just means we have more harder and more creative ways to do it.
Mark, just occurred to me, in the African American community, there's a resistance or a mistrust of voting by mail. And they generally, as a group, prefer to go to the polls, early voting. And when we were trying to, the Democratic Party is super big on voting by mail, and there's, you know, statistics that support that. But if you, you know, the equally important is having people know why they should vote. Because, you know, vote by mail is a tool. It's not what is going to necessarily get people to vote. In 2020, with the pandemic, for the first time, I started telling people, you know, just take it as a backup, as insurance. We don't know what's going to happen, and actually, I was better able to sell it because I actually believed it myself. You know, I wasn't just reciting some party line, vote by mail. You know, it's the way to win. It was. You don't know what it's going to be like in November. And I think that there's a similar argument that we can make this time around in terms of what I've read about what Republicans are doing with the poll watchers, and Joan probably knows more about this, really politicizing it. And they have a team of backup lawyers and go-to people so that you can really, they're going to be very aggressive, trying to stop people from voting in person. And we know what color people they're going to try to stop from voting. So do you think, one, in terms of, you know, the Haitian American community is not the same as the African American community? Is there a similar resistance, do you think, to voting by mail in the Haitian American community? And how strong would this argument be in convincing them?
I will answer in two ways. When Mr. DeSantis and the Republican state Senate, you know, has done to voting rights, where they make it harder to register these people to, I mean not to register, but rather to have to request ballot to vote and to send it back. For example, right now I'm working with different person that I personally have to go to them just to teach them, you know, to show them how to vote, but of course, you know, I'm very careful not to even touch the ballot, you know. So it's too. They would like to really, Haitian, they don't mind voting for it, but when I explain to them, look at your license, see how you sign your license,
right?
Make sure whatever you do, you're signing the voter registration, I mean the ballot, make sure, or in the envelope, make sure it at least look similar to what it is there, because you don't want your vote to go to waste. Or if you find it difficult, I would rather you go to early voting than really than taking a chance. For example, I've some of them, when they have the governor, vote for governor on the ballot, it says governor and lieutenant governor.
Right.
And you see the name of 4 people. They thought like the first 2, for example, the way if they had Charlie Crist and Nikki Fried right after, consecutively, but what they had was Charlie Crist, the name of somebody, and then Nikki Fried, the name of someone. So some of them really was confusing. They were confused, and they were about to darken Charlie Crist, and then darken the person on that as taking that's the person Charlie Crist choose for lieutenant governor. So what I have done, I went to the radio in my radio program. I said, no, do not. I said, if you have an issue, give me a call. I don't mind, to come over and do not do anything. Let me come over to show you from example, from the ballot, for an example, how to go about doing it. So working with immigrant group is a tough thing. It's tough until we can get to the second generation. That's probably more more apt to learning it. So first, I think it's an education. It's an educational stuff. A Haitian will willing to vote ballot, particularly it's more feasible for them because they work and they can send it over. But because of the nature, tend to procrastinate and wait for the last minute because we tend as a group from the Caribbean, we tend to very late to meetings, very late to meetings. So I tend to say, hey, this thing, for example, I told them this Sunday it's sold to the vote. They said, well, I thought it was before the vote. I said, no, things change. It's this Sunday the 14th. We have to go there and do and get it done, but from the churches. So if no one tell them, they might have probably waiting for the Sunday before I would say
election.
Sunday the 21st.
Right.
So education is the key. And then I really believe if we continue teaching and then helping them to understand how to go and vote and seal the envelope, sign then they will go for that. And not but of course the trust is like it's part of the nature. We tend to be very sensitive. We tend to believe everybody's out to get us because we're having a hard time in life. So of course you tend to take it very
suspicious.
Suspicious, exactly.
Yeah.
But it's nothing has to do with you or anything like that. It's just
Right. John has had his hand up for a while. Except you're muted, John, I think. There we go. Okay.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, fine.
Okay. So this is a sensitive subject to me because I'm 70 years old. I've voted ever since I was 18, religiously trying to do the best I could. And what Mark has said is how do we get people to vote between the sensitivity of 1,000 people in line behind you and having to make marks on a ballot in real time that you think you know what you're marking, but unless you have a cheat sheet, you may not be marking those things properly. And so I've been through this a number of times. The nerves associated with getting in a ballot box with 100 people waiting behind me, it makes me crazy. And the fact that I can now vote from home and analyze what I want to do, have the Palm Beach Post, have the Fort Lauderdale Sun Sentinel, have all this information in front of me, the internet. I can make my choices. I can make them calmly, and I can fill out my ballot, and I can seal it up, and I can personally take it to the poll and drop it off, or I can mail it, either one. I think we have to, personally, I think that if we could explain to people how comforting it is to be able to vote in the presence of your own home without any pressure, without anybody behind you. And all you have to do is follow the little extra couple rules of signing it and dating it. And I'm very passionate about that. So I had to get that out.
Yeah, well, the other thing when Mark was talking before about, being very careful and, making sure it's a close approximation. The other, and they tell us you can check the SOE website. I do that. Is there a problem with my ballot? They're either going to call, they're going to email you if you give the email. They're going to it's going to be noted on the website. Except that's if people are computer savvy and take the time to do that. I actually found a guy in 2020 where, I would be following up. Oh yeah, I mailed it in. Oh, I mailed it in. And I think I wasn't supposed to be doing this, but I went out on the SOE website and I had the information about the people. So I checked to see the status of their ballot, and then I would mark it down, and virtually all of them, it was fine. And I was really happy to see that. One guy I found out, I forget how they indicated it, but there was something wrong with his ballot. The signature didn't match or whatever. And I found out how to cure it, and I texted him and I sent him the the affidavit that he needed to sign. It was, a simple thing. And the guy printed it out, went to the drugstore, got it notarized, and texted me later that day and said that he had, and it was, I felt this was this great triumph. I
Yeah.
saved one vote, but, it's a laborious process to be checking on every, and I don't even know if it's kosher to be logging into the SOE website as someone else to check. But, if people are not going to do that, then there is the risk that the ballot is not going to be counted. So,
Right.
yeah.
Right.
Bob and then Joan.
Okay, yeah, actually a follow-up comment to this, which was not the reason for my hand raising, so I'll do the follow-up and then I'll ask the question. The follow-up being that, yes, we certainly want to continue to drive home and encourage, VBM as a, prime modality for, assuring that we get that vote locked and loaded, notwithstanding some of the hoops that, that one has to go through in the course of filling them out. Secondary to that, I wanted to share my experience early voting at Hagen Ranch the other day, and the use of the express vote machines that they have over there. Those machines are a godsend. They are in multiple languages. They easily take you through the process of your candidates. It safeguards against, obviously being able to select more than one candidate for one position. And when it's all said and done, you hit a print button, it prints, on the card that you're given when you check in, it prints your selections on there, or even actually shows you selections on the screen. You can look at them and say, yep, those were indeed my choices. And then you hit the print button and it codifies your selections onto that electronic form, electronic encoded form, and prints out, everyone who you voted for, and then you walk to the tabulation machine and insert it, and in it goes. So as a secondary modality for voting, early voting with the express vote machines, and it may or may not be something you have to specifically request, but if those express voting machines are a great way to, fail safe, erroneous ballot creation. So that was the comment. The question, Mark, is, we have an interesting race going on this year, particularly with the Commissioner of Agriculture race, where of the three, candidates running for the Democratic nomination, we have two, if I understand right, two Haitian Americans who are running for AgCom. Now, obviously, we're not in a place yet where we can endorse a particular candidate. We have to wait to see what happens on August 23rd, all of that. Well, if one of the Haitian American candidates comes out of that as the nominee for AgCom, do you see that as a potential lever for stimulating additional interest in the Haitian community in this election that might not have otherwise been there? Is that something we could really play up to try to draw, Haitian voters?
Along that line, I thought I spoke about that today, about Gayo and Belmur, because those two, although Haitian, but one was born here, okay, Mr. Gayo, he's of Haitian American background, but when you listen to him speak, you could see he has good command of the language.
Okay.
And but the other person may probably be a little bit more, as far as school, educationally speaking, as having degrees. The other person may, but what I do find between those two, either one will motivate the Haitian community. Not only the Haitian community, but particularly Mr. Gayo, because he has the cadence, the articulate, being able to to speak some kind of some Ebonics, if you understand what I mean in between. And then I think he probably be able to motivate both groups. And then that's something we could, if it happened that way, or Mr. Torres not make it, because there's a Hispanic person there too.
Yes,
And,
there is.
and the only thing though, I've been all three of them are putting things out on each other. You know, that's the nature of politics. So so right now, I could not tell you who's gonna win because I don't know. I don't know. Who I would like to win, I also don't know. But I have spoken to both of them already. But Mr. Gayo is you know, he's all over the place, and you know, he was living in Jacksonville. He has worked for different politicians in Washington, so he knows the nitty-gritty of politics. That's what he knows the rules. So if either one gets on board, we'll be out there promoting them on that basis, saying that we're gonna have first time a person of Caribbean background, you know, not Haitian, Caribbean background, you know.
Yes, sir. Yes,
So
sir.
this is how you get them, you know. You get the Jamaican to come on board, the Trinidad, the Trinidad,
Bahamians.
yeah, exactly. They'll have citizen of good characters, you know.
Yes. Absolutely. So yeah, I mean that's what my instincts were telling me, is that you know, it really presents a great opportunity this year in terms of drawing voters
and it's the first time in the state of Florida that happened.
Yeah.
I was shocked, because saying what happened to the others, you know, others meaning like, you know, other ethnic group, you know, Caucasian, Jewish, and you know, etc. Because I just said two blacks and one Hispanic going for Commissioner of Agriculture. It's unbelievable, you know.
Joan, and then Arlene.
Thank you. As far as voter protection, the Democrats really do now have a very, very robust voter protection team. And if anybody wants to be a poll watcher as well, they just have to apply for it, even in preparation for November election, because there's two separate authorizations, one for the midterm, one for the primary, one for the general. And that gives you the opportunity to go out there and look for yourself what's going on within each voting location. But listening to everybody, I think between now and one of the most important elections of our life in November is to educate our voters, listening to what John said about the comfort of your home, and Mike saying getting that ballot as a backup. And that's the line I always use. You don't know what's going to happen where you'll be on election day, and you have that backup. Your signature correct. So maybe we can use that voter education as an entree into some of these locations to speak about those issues, which start out being nonpartisan, but we'll be wearing our hats anyway, Democratic hats or buttons. But there is a lot of voter education involved, and we're preaching to the choir now, but there's a lot of people out there that don't really understand. Like Mark said, people were very confused about the governor and lieutenant governor positions on that first voting block. So those are the types of things that we can educate our voters about. And I think that we all need to get together and work on that between now and November 8th. Thank you.
Arlene?
Well, a couple of things came to mind. Well, I went to research the Commission of Agriculture candidates and asked around in Orange County, and I even contacted Rob Long because he works with soil and conservation. I found two videos, one by Naomi Lemura and the other Ryan Morales. And I was really, to be honest, disappointed in Lemura. She was aggressively repeating the fact of her gender and her race, said very little, certainly nothing specific about the office she was running for. I mean, she did a lot in Miami Democratic politics, at least that's what I read too. And Ryan Morales came out right away with three things: one on water, one on this soil, one on this, and presented well. And then Rob called me, contacted me because he thought maybe Naomi, because it'd be wonderful, the diversity. But her position on abortion is not for choice. And the Commissioner of Agriculture sits on the clemency board. So it's a very, it depends on how deep you want to go or what issues are come to the top. So it's very difficult. I like saying just, I don't know how she wants to say her name. Just, I think is what I saw her. Now, I believe she's Haitian. Am I wrong?
Alcoy Saint Just is yeah. To the best of my knowledge, she is.
Very strong. Yeah.
I met her husband the other day at Hagen Ranch.
And when all things being equal, then I like to go clearly for diversity. And I think in that case, I had no problem with my vote. Now, the other sadly thing I want to say, and I don't know, all it's going to do is say we have to stay very clear and work as hard as we can. Phyllis Applebaum is the co-chair of the voter services for the League of Women Voters. And I've been working with them a lot, going to the schools, going to senior facilities. We're working on reaching the disabled communities and certainly returning citizens. But in her position, she has just gotten so many phone calls from voters who can't get through or any information or any clarity from the supervisor of elections office. I ran into, especially when we're dealing with the seniors and we try to get on the phone to talk to an agent. They're either telling the wrong information or they just don't know. Part of this is understaffed because I have a lot of respect for Wendy. I think she pushes and works very, very hard. But we're up against probably a major shortage of staffing and certainly competence with some. I've gotten on good ones. Now, having said that, here in Del Rey at the SOE, coincidentally, Phyllis she had some issue with her VBM and they texted her to come and fix it rather than wait through the mails and all of that. So there's two pieces working here. But I was so disheartened to hear how I'm sure overwhelmed, and I think it's intentional that the supervisor of election has become with all these with SB 90 and everything else that just turns the corner and digs it in even harder. So we just have to be very sharp and clear. I think when we help anyone with a ballot, to make sure that it's complete, make sure this and that, just to keep underscoring it.
Right. John, you had a
just
follow-up?
Yeah, just a real quick, I want to volunteer to be a poll watcher. If I can arrange that somehow. I'm not on your official mailing list. Charlie Holbrook forwards me all of your information. So, but Joan, are you on the emails? Okay, so can I email you to give you all my information?
I'll put my email address in the chat.
Jessica chat. Okay. What?
Yeah.
Okay. Anyway, I'm on a volunteer. Thank you.
Oh. Okay. Any other comments, thoughts? Charlie, you had your hand up before, but you probably, that was so long ago.
Well, can you hear me? Am I on?
You're on.
I just wanted to ask Mark, he made a comment about two other ministers not being Democrats. I'm just wondering how popular is the Democratic Party in the Haitian community, and how the Republican Party, for that matter, too.
The Democratic Party still command among Haitian because once explained to this group, showing them that a lot of things that we stand for, we advocate. we believe within the Democratic Party, it's to their own advantage for them to really vote Democrats. The only issue that they have is the so-called cultural wars, that the Republican talked about, like gay marriage and abortion, that kind of thing. So that what I try to do, I try to say, look, you may not be everything the Democrats stand for, or we have a very wide tent. We have many goods under the tent. And then we are not a group that's gonna reject other groups, because everyone has the right to participate. That's my approach. And therefore, but look at what it is that we are for too. Okay, I said we have the plus and minuses. Let's count the plus and let's count the minus. For example, children, the tax law plus, the other one minus. This, that, plus, healthcare, affordable healthcare, Obamacare, parentheses, Obamacare, plus, the other one voted against. So and so, plus, the other one voted against. Okay, oops, gay marriage, plus, minus and plus. Suddenly, we only get, say, let's count the pluses and let's count the minuses. More plus, two minuses. Okay, I said, what you see is that, what is it that you believe? I said, do you believe having your kids go to better school? Do you believe in public schools? Do you believe, blah, blah. So that's the approach. I'm not talking about any other group, wrong or saying this group, but what I do, my approach is to educate, to say that you have the rights, it's human rights. And we all, just like at one time, Black people didn't have the right to vote, okay? And then we now have the right to vote. Who are we to deny other people that same right? So that's the educational part. So to me, to answer your question, Mr. Holbrook, most Haitian are really Democrats. The only thing, sometimes you may get a preacher that, because like preaching about a certain issue, that would say, oh, the Democrats, just like this preacher from Tennessee, the Caucasian preacher, calling all Democrat demons. We have this little standard deviation within our community also, but most Haitian are really Democrat. Period.
I had a Haitian woman lecture me in the parking lot of the Boys a few years ago. I forget what T-shirt I had on, but she told me, and was very angry about it, that the woman must always obey the man. Yeah, that's how it works. The man knows what, and the woman must, and say, well, all right, okay, have a nice day, but.
How is
so would you believe that? But that's the way it is. This is
are there strong feelings at all about guns?
Yes, there's strong feeling about guns, particularly a lot of young Haitian boys and and men particularly, not really women, girls. That's really into the gun culture, and then parents feeling very afraid of their kids. So meaning they tend to advocate on gun control. Gun control, therefore, we as a community, we don't believe everybody should have a gun walking down the supermarket aisle with a gun. We don't believe that. But as having a gun for defensive purposes, if you talk to them like that, probably they will say, yeah, they don't see anything wrong with it. But overall, with the crime wave, going on, and then everybody's being killed with guns, and particularly with the mass shooting, Uvalde, and Parkland. So that really is a rude awakening within our community, and that makes us more the anti, I would say, the permissiveness of having guns all over the place. We're not for that. I mean, as a community, we don't advocate for that.
Okay, so that's one more on our side. Okay, good.
Yeah.
On that one, I think you got us on that one. But of course, we can always talk. We can sometimes also we redefine family values to us. What does family values? We say it's human rights.
Yeah.
Rights to a good meal, rights to proper school, rights to this and that. Not rights to only whenever you need your vote. So.
Or rights to tell other people how to live, which
Exactly.
which is how Republicans do it.
Exactly. So that's where we are. But I think we're on the right track, except the COVID did kind of skew us a little bit. And but right now we're still not having meetings, at the place. But having meeting through Zoom has been very tough for my community. Even though I send the Zoom out to them,
right.
The one I tend to get is the professors, and people that I really would like that need to hear what's going on.
They're not there.
I believe the only way we're gonna get them is when because right now I still don't feel right because some of them don't wear masks to bring them into a room yet. So I'm not into that, and they agree. Except if I can limit them, the meeting up to like 12, 14 people the most, where we can be spread around the room. So that probably be a way to do it. But right now, I don't, I do not encourage meetings in crowd yet. Although I would go to attend the DEC meetings.
Okay, so Bob, maybe one final question.
Sure. So Mark, I mean, Charlie, mentioned one particular issue, and Dave another, but obviously, Haitians, just like everybody else, different people are going to have different hot buttons, things that are important to them and not important to them. But accepting all that, can you identify 2 or 3 really high leverage issues that tend to sweep across the Haitian community? And certainly, you already talked about one with abortion, on the negative side is kind of a hot potato to avoid in terms of terminology. But are there other issues that you would say that where we would look especially good, and if we, let's say, promoted those as our out of the box messages, hey, this is what we support, knowing that those are high leverage issues in the community? Are there a couple of 3 that you would say, yeah, these are the ones you should really hone in on?
Well, one, which is what the Haitian, because each and every one of us, we have family back there. And then most of us adhere to the law, which means that we petition immigration to bring our family here. And yet when they go for the interviews, after waiting 10, 12 years, what did happen is some of them, after waiting online, and then of course, that's it's such a sensitive issue, because when somebody come to the border and you feel pity and for them and everything. And by the way, this is happening with the Mexican community also, Mexican American.
Sure.
And then when the people come in like that, it's like they jump in front of the line. So who get penalized? Those of us who follow, quote unquote, the laws. But immigration is an issue for us. How you approach it is it's another thing. So we said we are good for family reunification, or unification. So that's something they definitely. And then the other one, I think it's already it's there is healthcare. Healthcare is something the community talked about a lot, because a lot of them go to the hospital because they're not able to afford insurance that give them a pre that way they're able to before they've been diagnosed, they can really have a medical doctor, family physician to follow. So the Affordable Care Act is really great in our community. And then it's good to remind them of who advocate, who came up with the idea.
Right.
Mr.
Yeah.
Biden,
Right.
Mr. Biden continue along that line.
Yeah, and I never liked when it was called Obamacare. I always said the Affordable Care Act. Now I like Obamacare. I like it. You know, they were using it to demonize it, but now
Exactly.
you know now I call it Obamacare, so that people understand that the guy who's saving their lives was a Democrat, and it's the Democrats that were doing it.
So that's a big thing with Haitian, So if you talk about also now, and this and that one, even though that's not really the politics here, talk about law and order in Haiti, that's a big thing. Restoring this instance of law and order, and all the gang fighting going on, and most of the weapons are being shipped from the US. What they find is that like 3 weeks consecutively, they found tons of cache arms, and guess where they come from? Florida, going to Haiti, even though they may be Haitians sending it. But how can, what the question the Haitians are asking, how can they get through custom and going to Haiti, and then no one catch before that? Whereas before they always show you the DEA is able to follow the drugs and know where the drugs are going, but for some reason, the Haitians are been giving weapons, creating gang all over the place, and Haiti is in chaos. So if we can find a way to sell this, look, we are for restoring some sort of not leadership, but kind of restore order down into that island, and that I believe is the key. The economics issue is is theoretical. It's too much theory into it. So but I think those things: immigration, healthcare, and last is Haiti. Whenever you say Haiti, they'll be listening to you.
Okay.
All right.
David, you want to finish this off?
Yeah, I mean, well, basically that was what I was going to talk about. Was somewhere I have a T-shirt that Haiti invented freedom.
Oh, we both have that.
And then they paid a very, very heavy price for doing
right.
so. Pounced on by the colonial powers, including us.
Exactly.
And I don't, and the U.S. history toward Haiti has been abysmal. Over our colonial and imperialist periods. And I mean, I don't know that we have any particular a policy toward Haiti, either as the Democrats or as a country, but anything that would improve the living standards on that island and establish freedom for Haiti. When we keep overthrowing the governments, I mean, we could work in something in that direction.
I was surprised to find out that the French were even worse.
Even worse.
There were those articles that came out in the last couple of months in the Times about the they were paying reparations to France. They were paying reparations after they threw the French out, and the French said, "Well, we'll be back unless you pay us money." So.
That is an issue there also. But come back to here, it's also housing. Rental properties are so expensive. So Haitians are facing that now because they cannot afford to buy a home, and a lot of them like to be homeowners because, as you could see, a lot of them own their own place in Delaware, Lake Worth, wherever, and then they tend to have that sense of proprietorship because in Haiti, we may be poor, but we tend to have our own little plot, of land.
Right.
So meaning we have that sense of self, awareness, and pride.
Right.
So, but here though, the rent is really expensive, and I can see that even in Lake Worth, people are renting apartment for $1,800 2 bedroom. And you know the type of money these people make. They're working in restaurant, a supermarket, and so base salary. So if they don't have, now they are being forced to really pick up a partner or a husband, because one income cannot really afford that. So you need another person.
Well, we noticed just in terms of canvassing and keeping track of records, the van records are a disaster in the Haitian precinct that we co-lead, because you go to house, oh, that person hasn't lived here in 3 years. And it's people that, and I assume it's like relatives and close friends that come in and they're living there for a while. You'll see 6 or 7 cars in the driveway, and then they're gone, and you don't know where they went. They're somewhere else, but they're not. So that the statistics that we get when the Democratic Party rates the turnout in various precincts, you got to add 5% to the Haitian precinct, because the denominator is way larger than it is in reality. Because there's all these people that are listed as potential voters there. They're not. They don't live there.
And also with the census, you saw that with the census, and I mean, there's more, and I can guarantee you, and I have some statistic on that. The demographic, of Haitian living in Florida, for example, is double than what you are seeing on papers. You see, but yet the census will say, oh, only a few people live here, but that's not true. They don't know, because that's why you need person like yourself, dedicated person, and like yourself, and those of us who speak Creole, we can go there and explain to them, no one is coming after you to call immigration.
Right.
The guy may be a citizen, his wife is a citizen, but yet his brother is an illegal immigrant. I mean, using that term, or illegal alien. So or it's not legal, okay?
Right.
So that all that meshing into what you are saying.
Okay, well, this has been great. You've seen all of the comments thanking you in the chat, Mark. I mean, we should do this again. We should try, as you suggested to me, to hold some joint meetings. I mean, back when we're doing them in person again.
I'm gonna have to, sorry, good night.
Good night, Arlene. When I mentioned to David and Shar that you had invited me to be on your radio show sometime, they both groaned. My cousin more than Shar, and said he didn't know what he's getting into. But I'd be happy to. We'll talk about it some other time. I mean, I think that it would be a good way to introduce our club, and
You'd have to spend the whole show translating.
No, you don't need.
And the bridging.
Okay. All right. Well, thanks everybody. I mean, this has been, I told Mark beforehand it wasn't going to be a big turnout, but the people that were coming would have a lot to say, and are anxious to hear. So I think it was very good.
I'm planning to have you next Saturday, if you have a chance, before the vote on the 23rd. So on the radio, just a call, phone call.
Sure.
Yeah. Sure. I have had Steve already. Steve from, Steve.
Oh, Steve West.
Steve West. Oh yeah.
Yeah. He's great. He's great. Yeah.
So I've had Steve, and he did a very good job. But with you, I'll give you some good time, so we can really have a good conversation.
Sounds
also
great.
Let the Asian people know, why it is important to go out and vote.
Right, yeah. Well, because there's actually no, the civil rights leader, Vernon Dahmer, who was assassinated by the Klan, said, if you don't vote, you don't count.
That's
But more recently, I saw the novelist David Foster Wallace said, there's no such thing as not voting. And then that's an issue of people who think, both parties stink. I'm not going to waste my vote. There's no point in, there's no point in voting. There is no such thing as not voting, he said. Either you vote by going to the polls, or you stay home and you vote by letting some diehards vote count, instead of being there to counter it. And I mean, that would really be my message, that people that voted for Ralph Nader in Florida, he was the best candidate. No, hands down. I love Ralph Nader.
I do too.
And I was in New York, and I had a free vote, and I voted for Al Gore anyway because I was pissed at Ralph Nader. Because you don't play around, and we're going to be dealing with that same thing in this gubernatorial election, because there are a lot of crazy Democrats, young idiots, and I mean young mentally, not young in age, who if it's Chris and DeSantis are going to say, Chris was a Republican, I don't vote for Republicans.
Yes, I heard that.
That's Oh, I heard it. There's a committee man in Jacksonville that I have a transcript of our colloquy that went on. Bob, you got into something with them. Larry Douglas Snyder. We were back and forth like 16 times, and he finally said, I won't vote, and I'm going to tell everyone I know to stay home. And I thought, I mean, what a jackass.
You might as well, just stick your foot in the doorway and slam the door. because
Right, yeah.
That's basically what you're doing there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, all right, we digress. David, I think it's time for the countdown.
Okay.
And
here
thank
we
you
go.
again. Thank you again, Mark. I'll talk to you
Thank you.
soon. Thanks,
you.
Joan.
Thank you very
Thanks,
much.
everyone. Yeah.
Thank you for having me.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Good
Yeah.
to see
Bye.
you, buddy.
4,
Good night.
3, 2, 1.
Uh,
Blast off.